People that work on movie sets. What are the most entitled actors you have ever met? Also a TV set. James Corden is an absolute jackass. Not the funny happy-go-lucky guy you see on TV. My favorite James Corden moment was when Jimmy Kimmel won a round of Spill Your Guts or Fill Your Guts by asking Corden to name one cameraman in the room right now. I used to work in the industry for a while. Asked some colleagues about the worst people they've worked with. More than one said Steven Seagal was a grade A douchebag. Another said Mike Myers was a nasty piece of work. I used to work in the film and TV industry. Tyra Banks legitimately will fire some people if they look her in the eye when passing in the hallway. Mostly interns. Ugh. On the plus side, Tom Hanks and David Tennant are genuinely amazing. And Eric Dane. Good guy. And an actress yelled at one of our new writers. And Eric heard about it. He later came by to apologize publicly in front of the whole cast and crew. Even though it wasn't his doing. Love that guy. And someone on the crew later tried to poison that actress. So. A professor of mine's sister met Jeff Goldblum in LA. And he got her number. Apparently he called her once at 4 AM to talk about snow. That was the only time they spoke. Worked in the business for about 10 years. I found that reality TV stars were the hardest to work with. I worked mostly with stars from Bravo and they were all entitled and horrible. Celebs I've met that were super nice. Rihanna. Mark Hamill. Tony Todd. Peter Dinklage. My friend has worked on Dr. Phil for years. He has a no eye contact rule and is apparently one of the nastiest, most self-absorbed people in the industry. The no eye contact rule is because he doesn't want people to realize he's cross-eyed and his eyes are too close together. Source. I'm out of work and get depressed in the afternoon. I was playing a background doctor on an ER type drama a couple years ago. While rehearsing a scene, one of the actresses said to the performer next to me, "Tell him he can't stand there." She was referring to me. I adjusted my position and asked, "Is he okay?" She said. Again to the actor next to me, "Tell him I don't care. Just stay out of my way." I asked, "Is there some reason you're not addressing me directly?" And she turned around and walked away. A few minutes late the scene was shot without further incident. I have no idea who this actress is. She wasn't one of the stars. I have no idea who this actress is. Katherine Heigl Mayo. Bam Margera used to frequent the mall where I was managing a store. He was always cool and never seemed pretentious. One afternoon he came in with some friends. And they were all obviously either high, drunk, or both. They were in my store, making a scene, being obnoxious, and started throwing around merchandise. Before I could say anything to them, Bam turned around and yelled for them to stop acting like f***ing children and to put everything back where they got it. Like good little punes. They did what they were told. He just looked at me and with a long and tired look on his face told me he was sorry about them. So, yeah. Bam seems to be a good guy. Many years ago I worked at Ubin Philly. We had a reservation for Don King one night but he and his large party didn't show. So about 15 minutes past close he calls and says he is running late but will be there in a few minutes. Owner asks essential staff to stay and about an hour later King and his party arrive. His party eats and drinks until after midnight but when presented with the check King says one of his companions was unhappy with the food. The waiter offers to take it off the bill. King makes snarky remark like, "Of course you will." He ends up leaving no tip on a nearly $2,000 bill while making staff work an extra 3 hours. My sister is a writer and has met and worked with lots of people in Hollywood. I asked her who the nicest celebrity she ever met was and she said without hesitation, Luke Perry. Third hand here so who knows. But a person I know has worked with Kevin Smith. During the filming of Live Free or Die Hard they were shooting Kevin's scenes. I guess the call time was 7 AM. Everyone is ready. Lights on. Sound check. Yada yada. No Bruce Willis. Turns out he was at a nearby bar having mimosas. The aide that went to get him was told I'm John McClane. What are they gonna do? Fire me? Or something to that effect. To Kevin's estimation, $90k-ish were wasted in pay, rental fees and whatnot waiting on Bruce to be ready to go. I was worried you were gonna say something bad about Kevin Smith cause he seems like a super cool dude in all the interviews I've seen of him. Faye Dunaway. Faye Dunaway. And I cannot stress this enough. Faye Dunaway. I've had dealings with her personally and can vouch for her entitledness and nastiness. But my friend who works on movie sets has horror stories. Extremely demanding. And also picky. She brings her scales with her everywhere and will make anyone catering weigh it up in front of her. She has a no eye contact rule, which must never be disobeyed. And she also yells and screams when things do not go her way. Not that it's any surprise to anyone, but Michael Cera is a huge f-king asshole. I watched so many young musicians come up to him during the SX Bob Bomb tour, come up to him to talk about music or gush about how he inspired them, only for him to either brush them off completely, ask them why they're talking to him, or just have security come take them away. Total dick. Yup. Worked at wine shop. At closing we are ringing one last guy out. Doors locked. Sarah comes to door. Disappointed we're closed. We can't sell anymore. Guy gives Sarah his own wine, knowing he could not get more tonight. So nice. Then asks for a picture for his kid. Sarah says no. What a dick. I went to school with a guy who wound up co-starring in a feature film. I saw him in the bar one night. He walked up to this table of women and said, "So, who wants my autograph?" He even had a pen. The women had no idea who he was because the movie he'd been in was some short-run B movie nobody had even heard of. Insecure people who gain any sort of fame and recognition are the most cringy of all. I have a story I'm telling secondhand. This was in a hotel, not a movie set. So sorry for breaking the rules. Apparently Sylvester Stallone had been angering the cleaning staff because he was leaving shits in the shower. When the manager complained to his people about this behavior, his publicist explained that they had to understand that Mr. Stallone was a very busy man. Too busy to sit on a f-king toilet. Not a movie set but has to do with entitled actors. I waited on Kirsten Dunst at Uma Thurman's sister engagement party out in the Hamptons. I went from having a celebrity crush on her to not being able to stand her by the end of the night. She ran out of cigarettes at one point and made a huge ordeal over the fact that when she asked staff for one no one had her brand, Yellow American Spirits. To be fair, she was drunk as hell at this point. She demanded that someone go out and get her cigarettes. And my manager made me oblige. I had to leave my entire section for about an hour to go on some crazy hunt during the peak of summer in the Hamptons to find her Yellow American Spirits. After I finally went to give them to her, she didn't say thank you or even make eye contact. She just reached out, took them out of my hands and pretended like I didn't exist. Uma Thurman on the other hand was a delight. Very polite and respectful. My mom's friend did security for concerts. She always told us about how nice the bands were, but Adele was a nightmare. Her fans started to line up before her concert outside of the stadium and Adele refused to do sound check because she didn't want anyone to hear her for free and you couldn't look at her when she spoke to you. AC/DC was the nicest band she encountered and the Foo Fighters. I try to remember that everyone has bad days and good, and my interactions with people on a professional level can be just that, a bad day or a good day. But that being said, working with Jonathan Frakes was so wonderful that at the end of our time together, I nearly turned around and said I love you, Dad. Everything this kid who grew up wanting to be Commander Riker could hope for. I used to be in a clan on BF with some dudes who worked in the production side. The number one worst person they met was Scott Eastwood. "Do you know who I am?" was his favorite thing to say to people. Apparently George Lucas' son told him off at a gala event. Know someone that is close to Robert Downey Jr. Downey is a really nice guy that is super focused on his family. This guy can pick who he works with and has been with Downey a few years now and says he's one of the best guys in Hollywood. Sheryl Crow and Bill Maher are the only people I've heard him say are just awful. I've asked about the Avengers and he said overall they're nice. I got hired in for 4 days for a Netflix original film and Chris Pine was a massive douchebag. I was a production assistant, PA, back in 2004-05 and I noticed mainly European actors were very humble and low maintenance and it was US talent that was the opposite, with exceptions of course. On the films I worked on, Scarlett Johansson was very high maintenance. It was her first tentpole film and I think it went to her head a little bit. She kept demanding extra things left and right and it was a miserable experience for most of the PAs on set. Cool and low-key actors on set: Ewan McGregor, Steve Buscemi, Sean Bean, Michael Clarke Duncan, R.I.P., Ice Cube, Samuel L. Jackson, William Dafoe, Danny DeVito, Tim Roth, Forrest Whitaker, Kelsey Grammer. For the most part the actors were generally good. If you want to know the most entitled person I had to deal with, it was hands down Michael Bay. He is an asshole of the first order and everyone associated with him, his bodyguard assistants, his 2 huge ass dogs, and some of his other staff are all straight entitled idiots. I've worked on a few movies and Ed Helms was the only person I've worked with that was a goddamn dismissive asshole. If you were a crew member you weren't allowed to even talk to him and if anyone said anything to him even out of human kindness like "excuse me" or "is this your car," he would act all pained and roll his eyes. A girl somehow found our offices and mailed us a fan letter with a picture she's bought of him and a press-dressed return envelope. It was a super sweet letter and the picture would have taken him 5 seconds to sign, but a PA read it to him and asked what he wanted to do and he said just put that wherever you put things and didn't sign it. And it was for a stupid romantic comedy that ended up being terrible. Sorry for bothering you with my friendship. I met Johnny Depp, Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom at a Pirates premiere. I'm a nobody and Johnny Depp treated me as such. Didn't talk to a single person and had security around him the whole time. Not the best impression. But Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley were really kind. Orlando Bloom even took my phone from me to get that perfect selfie angle, his words. I used to sit next to Billie Eilish in choir up until like less than 2 years ago when she really blew up. I saw her again when she came to one of our performances last year and she gave me a hug. Anyway, what's so weird to wrap my head around when I see her online or in interviews is that she's the exact same person that I knew her to be all my life. Weird. Quirky. Always sticking out her tongue and lifting her lips up to make weird faces. Always making fun of herself and others, in a playful way. But really down to earth. It's so weird seeing the person I sat next to for years literally copy and pasted onto such a high celebrity platform. My mom worked security for Kanye West and she said he was lovely. As was 50 Cent. Will Young was a knob. Not actors. I know. Kanye West is clearly the world's greatest troll. He's chilled out a ton as he got older. But apparently Arnold Schwarzenegger was an entitled arsehole when he was younger. My dad was in line at a club which Arnold tried to cut in front of, then got all "don't you know who I am?" Imagine the accent, and started threatening the doorman. Then like 5 minutes later James Woods came up and did the same exact thing. They stood there refusing to line up with everyone else looking pissed and threatening the doorman with various things. Doorman never budged and my dad gave him a high five when it was his turn to go it. Not a movie set, but I work at a major music festival by driving the artists from stage to their campsites tour buses. Every single EDM group I have ever drove act like 35-year-old man children crossed with cringy neckbeards. They are all douchebags. Not an actor but a director. David Fincher. He is a pain to work with and he is beyond eccentric. Did some work as an audio PA, production assistant, for a while. If anyone wore anything red on his set they were fired on the spot. I work in the music industry now. And one of the best people to work with is Garth Brooks. He's very laid back and incredibly humble. Treats everyone from the top down with the utmost respect. Brian Callen, most famous from Mad TV, is a major douchebag. He had a meltdown and screamed at everyone because a PA didn't get his coffee fast enough. He gave me dirty looks during filming and I couldn't tell if he was into me or was pissed at me, but it made me uncomfortable. Most of the entitled people I have worked with were not famous enough to remember their names. All the A-list celebs I have worked closely with have been great. But it's those that are either up and coming or not going up at all that are the little shts. Shia LaBeouf. Shia is a real asshole. Bruce Vilanch demanded I serve him his Skittles while in my underwear. I was young and wanted to get into the industry, so I regretfully. I met John Cleese at a Patent Awards dinner in 2003 and I'm still disappointed in that experience. Because I only got to talk to him for a few minutes. He's even funnier in person. He told me he kept a set of the teeth he wore in Rat Race. Cleese complimented my beard at a meet and greet last year. He took my face in his hands and titled my head back and said, "Your nasal hair hasn't even grown into your mustache." I know a guy who worked on the new movie coming out, 21 Bridges. He said Chadwick Boseman was insufferable. On the other hand, I've heard the best way to get on J.K. Simmons' good side is to have pictures of Spider-Man. I had heard that he hates doing the Wakanda Forever thing because he was asked to do it so much. But that doesn't really mean much. At a video game company I worked at back in the early mid-2000s. Before a meeting to go over some potential deals, Tom Cruise's handler people told us to set up this big spread of treats, food, and several different kids of water in blue bottles only, back when this was a thing. When Mr. Cruise came to the office, he was super polite, friendly, creative, intelligent. I was expecting strangeness and absurdity. We were all pleasantly surprised. Not me and not on a set, but my mom was a cashier at a famous local inn and a number of celebrities have visited. Billy Ray Cyrus, Michael Jackson, etc. One day Bill Cosby had showed up and asked for a specific cup of coffee with a bunch of weird tea in it. Long story short, my mom politely said we don't have that. Got yelled at. And was basically forced to go buy his coffee from somewhere else just so management looks good. Edit. I should probably mention my mom saw a white woman on his bed. Weird tea in it. Did he have the right prescription for that? Odd. I thought he only puts weird tea in other people's drinks. My brother is in the Detroit Film Workers Union, not sure of the proper name. He's worked on some big name projects when the studios in Pontiac were in full swing. Hostel 3, Oz, Batman vs Superman, to name a few. He didn't get to interact with many actors or actresses in the big studios. But he was in an old theater in Detroit and had an interesting run-in. Filming was on a break and he went exploring. Found an old piano and started playing away. About 30 minutes later he got up to leave and Carrie Elwes was standing behind him. Carrie apparently heard the sound and went searching for it. Finding my brother. They talked for a while. Ended up going out to dinner and still stay in contact to this day. I've never met the man, but from what I've heard he's a pretty awesome guy. Family member works in the industry. Ben Stiller and John Cusack have been described as very entitled and exactly what you would expect from them. John Cusack tried to get in an elevator before I could get out once in Chicago. I was 13 and told him to move or something in a really shitty teenager tone. My older brother told me loudly that was John Cusack. So I just as loudly proclaimed, "Who's John Cusack?" before I got off the elevator. I'd like to think he learned his elevator etiquette. But I'm not sure after reading these. Either way, we were all pricks in this situation. I still don't like him though. Not a movie set. But oddly, John Delancey has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder when it comes to professional work. But was very tolerant and charming among fans from what I observed in the half hour or so I got to hang around him. My brother worked with Lori Loughlin on a bunch of sets lately and she's apparently super nice. She followed him on Instagram until the whole college admissions thing. He badly cut his hand working on a project at home, and when we were at the ER, she sent him a long message just making sure he's okay, etc. I know that if this gets any comments at all, they'll be about paying to get her daughter into USC. But she's a solid person. Semicolon. He also worked with John Bernthal, and based on the stories from that set, he's a secret Keanu. I think that's what made the college incident so upsetting. She was so loved and known for her kindness and motherhood before the debacle. Kudos to you for looking at the good